Welcome to the Breakup Recovery Podcast by your host, Barbara Stevens. Discover the wisdom and remarkable insights of Barbara Stevens, breakup recovery mentor, author, and public speaker. Barbara offers programs and solutions for any breakup so you can turn your life around, create lasting changes for the better, and embrace life again.
Hello and welcome to my podcast, Breakup Recovery. This is episode number 012. I'm Barbara Stevens and I have with me today a lady that has agreed to share her story. Her name is Mish. Mish is a director of Mish Fit, and this business specialises in training pregnant, postnatal and menopausal women. Mish also owns and runs the Women's Health and Fitness Summit in Melbourne, which is in September each year. So welcome, Mish.
Hi, Barbara. It's so lovely to be on your podcast today.
Great. Can you tell me, Mish, briefly about your relationship, how you met and how long you were together for?
Sure. Well, I met my first husband when I was quite young, in the third year of university. So I think I was 20, which is a long time ago now because I'm 46. We definitely had a connection that I felt had been around for longer than us, and very soon we were living together and inseparable, and we ended up living together in New Zealand for a few years, and we lived in Japan, and then we lived in London for nearly 5 years, and then we moved to Australia, and we were together about 11 years and I think married for 9.
So, Mish, can you describe your breakup to me?
Sure. Well, we moved. We had our first daughter in England, in London, and I was pretty determined for her not to go to school there, and because it was a long way to travel with my family, to see my family in New Zealand, we decided to move to Australia. We had friends in Melbourne, and it seemed like a lovely marry between London and New Zealand. And it was we were very excited about moving and starting a new life and being in the sunshine and being closer to our family, only being 3 hours away as opposed to 24 hours away on a plane. But it was a very tumultuous year. So within a year of arriving in Melbourne, we bought a house, which was a bit run down. My husband worked in construction, so we together renovated it. I got pregnant for the second time. So when I was 7.5 months pregnant, my husband told me that he had met his soulmate, of which I replied, I thought I was your soulmate. And he said, so did I, but you're not. And pretty much that was it. I asked him 3 times if he would leave her, considering I was pregnant and about to have a baby, and we just bought a house, and I had no family and I had very few friends. And he was quite resolute that this relationship was, important enough to break up everything we had. He did ask me if he could stay with me till our son was 2 years old. And when I replied, well, will you stop seeing her? And he said, absolutely not. And so I said, that's not good enough. You can leave.
That must have been a terrible shock for you to have your husband come home one day and say that you're not his soulmate. So how did that affect you emotionally, Mish?
People often referred to our relationship as like a benchmark. We, had amazing life experiences together. We had a great relationship. We very rarely bickered, and a really deep love and respect for one another, I thought, though his behaviour wasn't, of course, very respectful. And he had sent me on a trip to New Zealand, and when I came back, I knew the house hadn't been slept in, the beds hadn't been slept in, and so, that instigated him owning up, and he felt much better owning up. He said he didn't like being deceitful to me. And I think he thought that he mistook the relief that he would feel in coming clean as that I would be happier about that, about knowing the truth. And of course, I wouldn't have wanted to stay living a lie, which it was, but I had no idea that it was a lie to begin with. I often joked that it would be really nice, I'm just going to put out the bins, by the way, I've stopped loving you. It just would have been nice to have a little bit of an insight beforehand that he had fallen out of love with me, had no respect for me, didn't want to live with me, didn't want to be married to me. He never, had mentioned that before. So it was like I didn't know who I was and I lost all sense of identity. And coupled with that, I am a very strong woman. I've done well for myself in terms of my career and always been confident, and that just, it shook me to my core. And coupled with the fact that I wasn't working, I had a toddler. I arrived in a new country, so I'd missed out on those mums and bubs groups. I knew very few people. I had no family there. I know that I leaned on him. He went to work each day, and I really enjoyed him coming home because I'd lived quite a lonely lifestyle where when we're living in London, I had a very busy life. So I did not know who I was. I couldn't recognize myself. I truly lost my identity, but was plunged into a survival mode of, well, I'm about to have a baby. And because it was my second baby, I knew what I was in for. And it was really very, very tough.
So, Mish, what actually happened to you when the baby arrived?
Well, amazing things happened. I had people put their lives on hold and come and care for me. Pretty much right from the time he told me, well, people thought that the shock might put me into, early labour. And so friends, people I hardly knew stepped up to the mark and organised rosters. I had friends come and stay with me from England and from New Zealand. I had family come over. I went back to New Zealand. My children were very small. And so I had this amazing support network that came in, but it was still very hard. It was very, any new mum will tell you that you are so sleep deprived with a new baby. Well, when I could possibly sleep, that was the time when I couldn't, because that's when I had to deal with my divorce and my feelings. And so, I was really in a very bad place. And I went to the doctor, and he said to me that I have postnatal depression. I don't think I had postnatal depression. I think I had post-traumatic stress disorder. But I was desperate for a relief over the big black hole that I was in. And so he prescribed me mild antidepressants, of which I took. And they certainly helped. At the same time, I had a friend from London come, and when I picked her up from the airport, she said to me, I asked her, how long are you staying for me? You haven't told me your outward date. And she said, I'm not leaving till I know you're on your feet. And my son must have been about 3 months old then, and every day we did some exercise. We joined the gym, or we went for a swim, and she would look after the kids, and while I swam, and then I'd play with the kids and she'd go for a swim. Or we'd find a different park, the Botanical Gardens, or we'd drive somewhere out of Melbourne and walk there. Every day was based around preparing food, good food, and exercise. And she held my baby while I cried and let me cry. And it was, it was pretty amazing. And I knew that I had to come off the antidepressants because I truly don't believe I am predisposed to depression. And what I was finding was that there were, it's a long time now. My baby is nearly 14 years old. But I remember these distinct times when I had gone for maybe a beautiful walk through the Botanical Gardens and the sun was shining but not too hot, and those things always make me feel joy, simply joy. And what I was finding with the antidepressants, although they took the bottom out of my lows, they also shaved off the highs, and I knew I had to work myself off them because I couldn't continue going and experiencing life without feeling that joy that I would feel at doing, different things that would, in the past, I would have felt joy. My objective was to get off those. And so I viewed myself as being broken, I suppose. And what do you do when you're broken? You try and mend. So my friend left, but she had established a routine that I continued, and that was that I exercised every day. And people would say to me, can you come and do coffee? And I'd say, I'll come after the gym, or I'd come after I do this. And they said, oh, you're such a gym junkie. But it made me feel better, and I had to have that. I had to have that feeling good, and that made me feel good. That was my medicine. I ate well, I exercised, and I saw therapy as well. So I started seeing a therapist before my son was born, and I kept that up for quite some time. And a particular session with her, she asked me a question that really resonated. She said to me, do you imagine yourself feeling like this or being like this in 2 years' time? And I was just amazed. Oh my God. I said to her, if I'm like this in 2 years' time, you've got to shoot me now, because I just can't bear the thought. I've never thought of 2 years down. All I could think of was very small, the day, what I was going to do, what I was going to cook, what I had to do with the children, get up and feed myself. That was all I could think of, the things like that. And she said to me, well, imagine how would you like to be in 2 years' time, and keep that as the focus. And that was amazing. And I just thought then, right, well, I have to be the person that I want to be in 2 years' time. And it's not this broken person. It's someone who can move on. And, and time is a great healer. It was a very difficult time, and some things took a long time than others. Like, for example, seeing newborn babies was a very, very difficult time, because I equated almost my loss of my marriage and my identity with also getting another baby. And that took a long time. But now I work in this field, and I love babies, and they give me joy when I see them and hold them and return them back to their mothers. So time does take the edge off things considerably, and other things can help as well. So I had my identity ripped away from me, and I certainly didn't know who I was. But I also, once the fog cleared, I was able to say, well, actually, I've got a second chance in life. I can now create it to be and have whatever I want. And so it made me make decisions that I think, well, they've certainly influenced me. I was a teacher. I gave up my job. I wasn't very happy with it. I'd gone back teaching, and, it's a safe, steady job, and I was a single mother, and I had to juggle a mortgage, and so that would have been a good thing to do, but it didn't give me any joy, and so I quit it, and I did something that I wanted to do, and that was to make exercise, make activity part of my life, and to help other women. And, I have gone on to create a successful company and an event, and I know that not only me, but all the franchisees and licensees that are involved with Mish touch women's lives all the time. That empathy, my journey and what I've learned from there as well has also enabled me to have true empathy for other people. They might have other things that have happened to them, but I understand loss and grief and know that what you need to do around loss and grief. So it's taught me a great amount, And also it's enabled me to choose a life. I chose my life, and I'm a very loyal person, so I would have stayed with my first husband through thick and thin, and enabled me to choose differently, and I was able to be quite selective. And I have remarried, and I have 2 stepchildren, and things are significantly better.
Sounds like you've found joy again, Mish.
I have found joy again. You cannot live without joy.
Definitely. Thank you, Michelle, for sharing your journey, your inspiring story of how you had to cope with a new baby and divorce, how you found joy again, and your focus of being the person you want to be.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you for your time.
If you would like to hear previous Breakup Recovery podcasts, visit barbarastevens.com.au. Connect with Barbara Stevens on social media with Barbara Stevens Breakup Recovery Mentor on Facebook and at You'll Be Okay on Twitter. Read further blogs, view webinar replays, and download your free ebook, 3 Easy Steps to Surviving Your Breakup, and much more at barbarastevens.com.au.